you very much, everybody. I'm going to guess that I probably traveled further than anybody in this room to get to Amritsar. So I'm based in Japan. I manage the APJ region. I get to India occasionally. And I rarely get to go to really interesting places. It's usually Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai. It's interesting, but it's always in a car, going from meeting to meeting. And this is the first time in my 6 years at Druva that I get to go to a destination like this for a conference. So I'm really looking forward to spending the weekend here with everybody. So first, how many people, show of hands, in the room have heard of Druva? All right, that's more than half. When I joined this company and when I first started coming to India, and even across the whole APAC region, if I asked that question 4 years ago, I might get one hand showing up in the room. So that's a huge change. But for the few of you who haven't heard of us, a little bit of history. So Druva was actually, and we have a lot of ties to India, and more than what's shown here. In 2008, we were founded. We were founded in Pune, India. In 2010, we got our Series A of capital investment from Sequoia. But part of that investment, they said, you've got to relocate your leadership and the company to Silicon Valley. So our founders and the CEO moved to Silicon Valley. They set up the company there. We still have our R&D in Pune, and most of our staff in Pune today. But we had to relocate to the US. So today we are a Silicon Valley company. But since then, in 2012, in the endpoint backup space, we became the Gartner #1 rated enterprise product. And we held that crown for the next 4 years. In 2013, we made our first big pivot. And we made that pivot to cloud. And we launched a cloud-native SaaS platform built on AWS. Very early at the time. Adoption was just starting in the cloud. But by 2019, we're now recognized in the Forrester Wave as a strong performer in data resiliency. And amongst the companies in there, we are the only SaaS vendor. And today, 2020, we are the leading cloud-native SaaS vendor. And we have over 4,000 enterprise customers around the world, and some of the biggest brands. And we actually have the biggest brand in the world, who is our customer, which I will leave unmentioned. So I would have loved our CEO to come speak to you. He couldn't make it. Jaspreet Singh. And as I said, Druva is highly connected to India, and it's not just Pune. Jaspreet was actually born in Amritsar. So to some degree, we are a founded in India company, but we are a born in Amritsar company to some degree. When I first joined the company, just a quick side story, Jaspreet came to Japan when we were first setting up Japan. And I took him down to Kyoto, which is sort of the heart and soul of Japan. And in Kyoto, there's a famous temple called Kinkakuji. And it's Japan's golden pavilion. So it's our version of the Golden Temple. And I actually took Jaspreet there. So it's almost ironic that now I find myself six years later in Amritsar. Haven't been to the Golden Temple yet, but I do hope to make a pilgrimage there tomorrow morning or the next day. So, real quick, I'm going to keep this as simple. What is it that Druva does? In the most simplest terms, we do data protection. And what is data protection? That means backup, disaster recovery, and data governance. And the use cases are going to be business continuity, cyber resiliency, threat protection from things like ransomware or other malware, or insider threats, legal compliance. It's nothing new. It's something that everybody, any enterprise, has in their data center today. So why do we exist? Why did we build this company, and why are we where we are today? So every company has to have an innovation. You have to bring something new to the market. You have to address a problem that can't be solved, or you have to bring capabilities that weren't existing. So the data protection market's been around for a long time. So what is it about Druva that makes us different from everybody else? And that comes down to one thing. We built a cloud-native SaaS product. And we didn't just take our software, find a service provider, and go host it in the cloud. we actually started this journey in 2011. And we started working with AWS, and we embarked on a 2-year journey to essentially reinvent ourselves, completely rewrite this product from the ground up. And 2 years later, in 2013, we actually released this product into the market, and this was the cloud version of our product. On the surface, it might look similar to what we had before, but underneath, it was a brand new product. It was a long journey, and since 2013, the world has adopted cloud, we've become established, and now we find it's not about trying to convince people to go to cloud. That's already accepted. So the adoption rates have changed. So what is it about cloud-native SaaS that is really compelling? For us, it means no hardware, no software to manage, so you don't have that traditional data center, deploy in seconds, higher reliability, higher durability, single vendor and bill. You don't have complex environment where you're buying hardware, buying network equipment, buying several software stacks, making a contract with your tape vendor or offsiting. Single vendor, one throat to choke with Druva. We provide the product, we manage it end to end. Standard SLAs, certifications globally. That's what's distinctive about it. So, what is it about the cloud that gave us this opportunity? A lot of it is the economics as well, too, because a lot of things have been transformed to SaaS ahead of time. Salesforce.com has been around for a long time, but when it comes into data protection, we need storage, and we need the economics around storage as well, too. And there was a trend in the industry that also allowed us to do that. And what we found is that cloud storage was now reaching the point that made this practical. From a technology standpoint, we introduced technology that let us efficiently move that across the network, but we still had the economy, the costs and the COGS that come with storing data in the cloud. And if you actually look at what the vendors are doing, if you go back and look in the last 5 years, how many times has AWS dropped the price in cloud storage? How many new and differentiated services have they brought to market that we can utilize in our platform to bring those cost savings to our customer? In the last 5 years, the continuous annual growth rate, which normally goes up in sales, but in the cost of cloud, has gone down by 60%. That's phenomenal. And where we stand today, cloud is not something, I can't come here and say it's black and white. Cloud is best for everything. There are still cases where you have to keep that on-premise. And when I was listening to the earlier conversation, this is a gradual change. Things have been gradually moving to cloud, and you're going to move the applications that are ready. And that's what we're also seeing with the economics, is that for certain applications and certain use cases, it makes sense today. For your giant data center, your legacy databases, it might not be ready yet. But if it's not ready today, those are going to be use cases and workloads and data sizes that we're going to tackle in the next few years. And that's what Druva is in its core. We are taking that data protection and management industry, what the legacy vendors used to do, we're transforming that into SaaS. That's Druva in a nutshell. And if we really look at cloud adoption, I found this really compelling. I mean, we are seeing an astonishing rate at adoption. This is Office productivity suites in the cloud, Office 365 and Google Suite. If you go back to 2014, Office 365 had less than 10% of the market, Google Suite had 15% of the market. So that's about 22% overall adoption. To where we stand today in 2018, 81% of enterprises are using Google Suite or Office 365 in some form or another. So that's massive adoption, faster than we could have ever expected. And because of this, that role of the CEO is changing, the CIO is changing. Gartner predicts by 2025, 55% of enterprises will have adopted 100% cloud strategy, SaaS strategy, using services, not traditional architectures. And if you also look at the case with Druva, what Druva is doing is we're getting rid of all that infrastructure, the storage, the servers, and everything that comes around it, and the people that you had to employ to deal with that. And that's really compelling, because what you can now do as a CIO is, instead of worrying about managing and building that infrastructure and becoming experts, Why should every company have to worry about doing that? Why don't you take that staff and worry about how do you innovate in your business? How do you manage your data? How do you do more interesting and compelling things? So, one other thing to say is, what we've started to find in the industry is pretty much any vendor, especially in the data protection space, will say, oh yeah, we can do cloud too. And this is one of the things we want to educate the market on. What does cloud mean? Because when you really peel back the covers, and it's technology, people bring cloud in many different formats. But not everything is really a true cloud-native SaaS solution. So beware of cloud washing. And here's 3 very common ways that people cloud wash. One would be archiving cloud storage to cloud. So keep your traditional environment. You can archive off to cloud. Sounds great. It's an easy step to take. But it wasn't architected from the ground up to be in cloud. There's going to be costs. It's going to be complex. It's great because you have choice, but it's not a true cloud solution. The other is to host yourself. Take the software, host it in cloud. You do a contract with AWS. You do a contract with Azure. You manage the software. It does give you choice, but there's no difference from what you're doing on-premise. Someone still has to have the expertise to set that up, manage it, fix it, and scale it. And the other is something that's provided by a service provider. And that's what most of the other companies are doing, is they're making partnerships with service providers or taking the legacy software, hosting it, and they're offering it as a service. So on the surface, it looks like a service. But when you really peel back the covers, it's no different than what it was 5 and 10 years ago. And it's not going to give you all those benefits that you get with native cloud, with scalability, ease of use, and all the resources at your disposal. So looking at Druva in a nutshell, we started off in endpoints, and it was data protection. We have now recently got into the data center, backing up those traditional servers and those workloads. And we also do cloud workloads. And what do I mean by cloud workloads? It's that Office 365. It's Slack. It's Salesforce. It's Google Suite. It's AWS. And the question is, well, those are already in the cloud. Do I need to protect that? The answer is actually yes. You do get high availability of those applications. It's less likely to go down, but it doesn't mean that it's immune to threats. Accidental data loss, misoperation from your admin or user, ransomware attacks. It's still susceptible to that, so you still need to protect that. And because we are sort of this modern solution, we're really focusing on those modern workloads. We're not going to go figure out how to back up Solaris. That's legacy. Use the traditional products you've been using. We're going to focus on where businesses are going, which are these new workloads. And we're going to be adding more on top of that. And then the other power of cloud is because we have this data in the cloud and we essentially have infinite compute at our disposal. What can we do with that? Now we can help you with your governance, your e-discovery, your analytics, reaching into that data, looking into that unstructured data. And those are the areas where we're really focusing on a company. Now, how can we leverage this cloud platform to do more? So what I'd like to do with the last 5 minutes of this presentation is I'd like to invite one of our customers up, Anil Porter from ITQ. So he's been a customer of ours since 2014. They originally adopted us before we made our pivot into the cloud. They used our on-premise product, and recently they made the switch over to cloud. So please. Thank you, Anil. Microphone.
So we were the early adopters of Druva backup, I think somewhere in October 2013, within the group. We were not the first one, but yeah, within the group, we were the one. And I think one of the key reasons, can you go to the next slide? So everybody wants to have backup. So backup for whether it's end user devices or your data center, databases. Backup is not essentially for backup, it's basically for restaural. You take backup not just to create backup files, but to restore it whenever you need it. So I think at that point of time in 2013, organization were not that very, I would say, agile when it comes to bandwidth or bandwidth availability. So we kind of finalized this product based on the efficiency that it was providing on the bandwidth. Very lightweight, First-time migration always is there. There's a challenge, but regular and recurring is kind of very convenient. The other part over the period of time, what we've seen is the compliances, especially when it comes to functionality called legal hold. So there are attritions that happens, and typically, especially people who are kind of owners or working on critical data, when they decide to leave organizations, so people who are leaving on a good note, that's one, but there's also a huge workforce that is kind of a disgruntled workforce. When they leave, they kind of create disruption. So when they decide to leave, the first thing that they do obviously is to put in papers, and there's a notice that they're to serve. So within our organization, what we've implemented, whenever a person puts in his papers, the first thing that happens is he's put on legal hold, which means that he can't delete anything which he's only creating. So apart from that, governance obviously helps us in terms of being compliant, and I think analytics is the next thing that would happen. We've adopted to cloud a couple of months back, and we're seeing advantage primarily because of the mobile workforce that is increasing. We're really not bothered about whether he's in office or not, whether he's coming to office or not, but the data is coming in. I think those were the key features, and we continue to build upon that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Anil. And I know we went really quick through that. He will tell you about his experience with Druva, the good things, and I can't even control him. He'll tell you about the difficult challenges he had, but please talk to him if you have any questions about a user experience. Thank you very much, everybody.